This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. A Senate confirmation vote for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh may come as early as Friday. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he plans to schedule the vote shortly after the FBI concludes its supplemental investigation of sexual assault allegations.
So soon, I expect we'll hear that the conclusions of the expert prosecutor who questioned both witnesses at last week's hearing aren't reliable, or that the FBI's investigation was not infinite or endless enough for their liking. And so let me make it very clear. The time for endless delay and obstruction has come to a close.
Sources at the FBI tell CBN News the Bureau hopes to wrap the Kavanaugh investigation by Wednesday or possibly Thursday. And Gary Lane joins us now with more on this investigation. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is the FBI is proceeding, moving forward, doing their investigation. So far, there are reports that they have interviewed Deborah Ramirez. She is the woman who says that he exposed himself to her at a college party. But Ephraim, it looks like those that will be interviewed beyond her would probably be Kavanaugh himself, maybe again. And then also, of course, Blasey Ford, and then possibly his friend Mark Judge, and also another individual by the name of Smith and Kessler. So we'll have to see what happens.
And we'll be watching the timing of this because the vote's scheduled and the FBI is still investigating.
Yes. Well, they're very tight-lipped. You know, they're not going to tell you everyone that they're investigating. But once that is complete, and CBN News has learned that it will be Wednesday or Thursday, then the information will go to the Senate Judiciary Committee. They'll have a chance to look at it. And then Mitch McConnell says they'll vote. All
right. We'll be watching. Thank you so much for the update. Much appreciated. President Trump says the FBI will have free rein in its investigation of Judge Kavanaugh. But what exactly will the FBI do? CBN News national security correspondent Eric Gonzalez has more.
With a Friday deadline looming, sources tell CBN News the FBI will concentrate its investigation on 4 witnesses in the Judge Brett Kavanaugh investigation. Sources say agents will concentrate on the women who made assault accusations and a high school friend. Sources say the Bureau will take a closer look at the allegations by Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, along with Julie Swetnick and friend Mark Judge. CBN News has learned Deborah Ramirez, who accused Judge Kavanaugh of exposing himself to her during their freshman year at Yale, spoke with the FBI for about 2 hours over the weekend. Sources say she provided the FBI with a list of witnesses who might corroborate her story.
Ms. Ramirez will be interviewed by the FBI, and Mark Judge will be asked, did you ever witness Brett Kavanaugh drug or gang rape women? And I think that'll be the scope of it.
FBI sources say conducting an investigation under a tight deadline is nothing new. Sources add it's important to note the White House requests the investigation and is the one who has provided the results. The FBI will not provide results to any other body, and the final report will likely weigh heavily on interviews. The White House can order investigators to further examine the allegations if their findings open new avenues of inquiry. President Trump insists he is not interfering with the process.
I want it to be comprehensive. I actually think it's a good thing for Judge Kavanaugh. I think it's actually a good thing, not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Now, with that being said, I'd like it to go quickly.
But Democrats continue to question the scope of the background check.
The credibility of Judge Kavanaugh, that's what's before us right now.
Republican Senator Bill Cassidy on Saturday accused Democrats of strategically attempting to delay the U.S. Supreme Court confirmation.
I think most people on the Republican side see it for what it's worth. It is a pattern of leaks set to delay and to character assassinate.
And Eric Gonzalez joins us now from our Washington, D.C. bureau. So, Eric, what is the latest you're hearing from your sources regarding this FBI investigation?
Well, sources very close to the investigation are telling me that we could wrap this thing up possibly even tomorrow or even Thursday, and then have a vote in the full Senate possibly on Friday.
So the final FBI report, will that not go directly to lawmakers?
That is correct. You know, a lot of people don't realize that. It's going to be going to the White House, and it's up to the White House on whether or not they release the information to the Judiciary Subcommittee or the entire Senate. Of course, that's not going to happen. I mean, they're going to release it, but they can also redact any information as well that they don't want the full Senate to know about.
All right, the latest twists and turns. Eric Rosales reporting for us from Washington. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Here's a look now at some of the other major stories we're following for you inside the CBN newsroom today. Indonesia's disaster agency says the death toll is now more than 1,200 following the magnitude 7.5 earthquake and tsunami that struck the island last week. Emergency officials say at least 34 of those who were killed are children who were attending a Christian Bible camp. Rescue workers said a mudslide caused by the earthquake engulfed the church. Officials say at least 800 others have been injured. A new policy laid out by the Trump administration has made a marriage a requirement for partners of foreign diplomats to be eligible for a visa. The policy was made effective Monday. Foreign Policy magazine reports the administration has already begun denying visas to the unmarried same-sex partners of foreign diplomats and employees of the United Nations. The policy gives couples until the end of the year to get married or leave the country. Unmarried heterosexual partners are also not eligible for U.S. visas. South Korea says North Korea has a secretive weapons arsenal. South Korea's unification minister told Parliament the estimates on the size of North Korea's nuclear arsenal range from 20 bombs to as many as 60. The senior official said the information came from the intelligence authorities. He also said efforts to rid the North of its nuclear program would continue. Coming up, an amazing interview you don't want to miss. Meet the doctor whose revolutionary program can prevent and possibly reverse the effects of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's disease is the most common form of dementia, and so far scientists have been unable to find a treatment to stop its progression. But two large studies are trying to prevent the disease by starting earlier. The National Institute on Aging and the Alzheimer's Association are working together to target the very first brain changes. The goal is to try to block the earlier steps of plaque formation in healthy people who show no symptoms of dementia, but are at a higher risk for it because of the age and genes that make it more likely. Just the word Alzheimer's can be frightening. It steals memories and is America's third leading cause of death. One doctor believes the disease can be successfully fought. Lori Johnson visited one of his patients whose Alzheimer's symptoms reversed.
These days, 69-year-old Sally Weinrich smiles almost all the time, ever since her Alzheimer's symptoms reversed.
Life is good. I like being able to remember, to connect the dots, because I've experienced the absence of thinking, and that is scary.
Her husband, Martin, equally overjoyed.
She has come back.
Sally's not alone. Hundreds of patients with mild to moderate cognitive impairment experience never-before-seen improvements thanks to a revolutionary treatment developed by Dr. Dale Bredesen.
Alzheimer's disease is no longer a mystery. You don't have to say, we don't know why you get it, we don't know what to do about it. We do know why you get it, we do know what to do about it, and we know how to prevent it.
After 30 years of research, Dr. Bredesen is sharing his treatment in the new book, The End of Alzheimer's, as well as in medical journals. Just like a roof with 36 holes can only work when all 36 are repaired, Dr. Bredesen says there are 36 causes of Alzheimer's, which must all be addressed.
If there are specific exposures, you want to get rid of those. If there are specific nutritional changes, you want to address those. If there are hormonal changes, you want to address those. If there are inflammatory changes.
Sally and Martin sensed trouble when she began forgetting things, like her grandchildren's names and her purse at the grocery. A test confirmed early stages of Alzheimer's.
It was a total sense of hopelessness. A wish to die and not want to live, because as a nurse, I've cared for Alzheimer's patients, and I also have had family members who I love dearly who've had advanced Alzheimer's and who died from Alzheimer's, in fact.
So, of course, I was scared.
Martin, a scientific researcher, scoured the internet for help. He found Dr. Bredesen's protocol and got Sally on board.
You don't want to wait until it's very late in the game. The earlier the better, and the more likely you're going to see dramatic improvements.
Sally got what Dr. Bredesen calls a cognoscopy, blood work, genetic tests, and more to identify where she was when it came to Alzheimer's 36 causes.
All of us should have a cognoscopy when we get to 45 or more, just as we get a colonoscopy when we're 50. Everybody knows that.
Sally's results pinpointed specific areas of concern.
Each person's program is different, so we developed a computerized algorithm so that you can look at all the different contributors for each person, identify.
The next step for Sally, tailor-made treatment that zeroes in on where she needs improvement. In her case, that meant certain medicines, vitamins, and supplements, more sleep, less stress.
And the first thing I started doing was spending, because Dr. Branson talks about decreasing stress, was spending 30 minutes each morning praying. I immediately saw improvement in what I could recall. Next thing I did was increase my exercise. I immediately saw improvement in my thinking.
Sally eats a mildly ketogenic diet as part of her treatment. That means no sugar and very few other carbohydrates.
When I am ketogenic, my brain thinks clearer than when I'm not ketogenic.
Sally eliminated exposure to certain toxins like mold and pesticides, addressed hidden infections in her body, and much more.
I have not gone to town and forgotten my pocketbook since I've started this program. Hallelujah, because I need my credit card.
It takes typically 3 to 6 months, but we see unprecedented improvements in their scores, in their ability to go back to work, interact with their families, increases in their hippocampal volumes, things like that.
When it comes to sustainability, Dr. Bredesen says people who have been on the program for 5 years now are still mentally fit. So while genetics mean an estimated 75 million Americans are predisposed to Alzheimer's, like Sally Weinrich, Dr. Dale Bredesen says they no longer have to fear being tested, because now there's something they can do about it.
The fear is pretty much gone. The doubt is pretty much gone. And that's the real Sally. That's who God and Dale Bredesen have given back to me.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Still ahead, see how one 72-year-old is bringing hope and healing into a community ravaged by drugs when we return. In many communities across the country, children can easily become overwhelmed with today's cultural influences of sex, drug, and violence. Gail Hart saw this happening in her hometown and wanted to become an agent of change. And this now 72-year-old is doing it through dance. At 70 years young, Gail Hart spends 12 hours a day teaching 200 children to do what she loves, dance. But her studio isn't just a place to practice. It's a refuge for girls and boys looking for safety from sexual abuse, family violence, and homelessness.
This is Craddock area, and it is one of the most needed areas in the Portsmouth area. And the kids are on the streets. There's so much going on in the community that is not good.
This area of Portsmouth, Virginia looks like a number of older American cities, a once thriving community that hit tough times, lost its luster, and saw poverty and crime take over. Those painful realities are what moved Gail to open her studio in 1979. And for 25 years, it was smooth sailing, with children turning to her for love and security. Then, in 2005, that all quickly disappeared. Gail fell down a flight of steps and severed her Achilles.
And this was when I decided that maybe God is trying to tell me something, or I'm tired and I'm getting older, and maybe it's time for me to close and give it up. And I decided to do that in 2005. And I stopped teaching.
The pain forced Gail to stop dancing. She closed her Portsmouth studio, moved, and became a substitute teacher. That left potentially hundreds of children without a place to dream and families without a safe place to turn. Gail was heartbroken. For 4 years, she longed to reopen her studio, but she could barely walk, let alone dance. She needed a miracle.
So I'm like asking myself, how are you going to do this? And I said, okay, Lord, you brought me here. You got to fix this foot for me to do what I need to do. And at one point, one day, I realized there was no more pain in the foot.
Gail says God did what doctors could not. He healed her and called her back to Portsmouth to serve, to love, and to be his hands and feet.
And I've learned so much about Christ and how he can lead you to do the things that he expects you to do.
8 years after reopening her studio, Gail still sees lives change through dance almost daily, including these girls. Their mother, Devonna Doucette, needed courage to leave her abusive husband and to protect them.
One incident, the police were called out. I suffered from a black eye, bites in my back, just other, physicalities that I suffered. And at that point, everything just with my mom's death just came to the forefront.
Her mother's death came at the hands of Devonna's stepfather, a cycle of abuse that would follow her for years until she finally broke free.
And I just can't imagine, just having my children here without their mom. That's something that I experienced, and the feeling is not a good feeling. I still need her to this day. It's very, very hard.
Devonna left her husband. She and her daughter spent many nights in a shelter with only songs of faith to keep their hopes alive.
Sitting on the edge of something new, I'm waiting for you to move.
Today, they also have dance and a true friend in their teacher, Gail Hartz.
It has been awesome. Every day they come home and they go in the living room and they teach me a new step and different, from the different genres of music that they're learning and the choreographers. And you would think my girls are in Disney World every day coming here.
And there are still hundreds of other girls and boys whose stories of hopelessness have been rewritten here inside the Gail Hartz Performing Arts Studio.
I see his hand in all that I'm doing right now. And I believe that your words can be a change or a turnaround for someone else's life. I believe that God has his hand on me to do these things. I really seriously believe that.
God indeed does have his hand on her. One woman making a difference in her own community. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us. I'm Ephraim Graham. A Senate confirmation vote for Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh may come as early as Friday. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he plans to schedule the vote shortly after the FBI concludes its supplemental investigation of sexual assault allegations.
So soon, I expect we'll hear that the conclusions of the expert prosecutor who questioned both witnesses at last week's hearing aren't reliable, or that the FBI's investigation was not infinite or endless enough for their liking. And so let me make it very clear. The time for endless delay and obstruction has come to a close.
Sources at the FBI tell CBN News the Bureau hopes to wrap up the Kavanaugh investigation by Wednesday or Thursday. Just days after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu exposed secret Iranian missile conversion sites in Lebanon, the Lebanese government took diplomats on a tour to supposedly prove he was wrong. CBN Middle East correspondent has more.
Lebanon's foreign minister, Gibran Bassil, accused Netanyahu of telling lies about Lebanon to protect himself. But he admitted that Hezbollah does indeed possess the accurate missiles.
It is true that there are many statements made affirming the possession of accurate missiles by Hezbollah. However, this does not mean that those missiles are present in the vicinity of Beirut airport.
Late last month, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah boasted that his group now possesses highly accurate missiles, despite Israel's attempts to thwart the acquisitions. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah is part of the Lebanese government, but is considered a terrorist organization by the U.S. Last week at the UN, Netanyahu blasted Hezbollah and Iran.
In Lebanon, Iran is directing Hezbollah to build secret sites, to convert inaccurate projectiles into precision-guided missiles, missiles that can target deep inside Israel within an accuracy of 10 meters. Hezbollah is deliberately using the innocent people of Beirut as human shields.
Netanyahu listed 3 sites near the airport, one on the waterfront a few blocks from the runway, a second underneath a soccer stadium, and a third adjacent to the airport itself. The IDF released a video at the same time showing the sites. Calling it a diplomatic confrontation, Basile took dozens of ambassadors on tour of the sites. They included the soccer stadium and a walk through a neighborhood that's a Hezbollah stronghold. Netanyahu responded by saying in a statement that Hezbollah is brazenly lying to the international community by means of the fraudulent propaganda tour of the Lebanese foreign minister, who took ambassadors to the soccer field but refrained from taking them to the nearby underground precision missile production facility. Last week, Netanyahu said he had a message for Hezbollah.
Israel also knows what you're doing. Israel knows where you're doing it. And Israel will not let you get away with it.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And our Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell is here right now with more. So, Chris, are these missiles a threat to Israel?
Yeah, they're a huge threat to Israel, because not only are they in range, not only from Iran, but also, as we've seen, from Lebanon. We were up there in 2006 on the Second Lebanon War. At the time, Hezbollah had maybe 4,000 rockets. Now they have about 150,000 rockets, and many of them are much more accurate, just like Benjamin Netanyahu was saying.
Wow. So does Iran plan to build long-range nuclear missiles for nuclear blackmail of Israel and eventually the U.S.?
Well, that would be the game changer. Earlier this year, Benjamin Netanyahu said that they had discovered intelligence that Iran was trying to miniaturize a nuclear device to put on a ballistic missile. And if they ever had that kind of device, that could threaten and blackmail Israel, the United States, Saudi Arabia, all of the enemies of Iran.
Now, could we see regime change in Iran?
Well, it's possible. A lot of people are hopeful right now because, first of all, you have economic turmoil, political unrest, you have a spiritual revival going on. So that's a very possible thing. What the Trump administration is doing right now, Ephraim, is using something out of the playbook from the Reagan administration. They're putting maximum pressure on Iran right now through the sanctions, more to come next month. And what they're trying to do is really just put the same kind of pressure on the Soviet Union that they want to do right now in Iran.
Let's turn to Turkey now. How does Israel view the growing Islamization of Turkey under Erdogan?
A big threat. They see Erdogan as wants to reestablish the caliphate, reestablish the Neo-Ottoman Empire, and they want to use Jerusalem as the cornerstone. I talked to 2 people this morning that said Turkey itself is undermining what the Israeli government wants to do inside the old city of Jerusalem, and so that's really a really serious threat to the state of Israel.
All right, Chris Mitchell, thank you so much. Really good to have you here
Great
in
to
the
be with
studio
you.
today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Here's a quick look now at some of the other major stories we're following for you today inside the CBN newsroom. Indonesia's disaster agency says the death toll is now above 1,200 following the magnitude 7.5 earthquake and tsunami that struck the island last week. Officials say at least 34 of those killed were children who were attending a Christian Bible camp. Rescue workers said a mudslide caused by the earthquake engulfed the church. Officials say at least 800 others have been injured. A new policy laid out by the Trump administration has made marriage a requirement for partners of foreign diplomats to be eligible for a visa. The policy was made effective Monday. Foreign Policy magazine reports the administration has already begun denying visas to unmarried same-sex partners of foreign diplomats and employees of the United Nations. The policy gives couples until the end of the year to get married or to leave the country. Unmarried heterosexual partners also are not eligible for U.S. visas. South Korea says North Korea has a secretive weapons arsenal. South Korea's unification minister told the parliament he estimates on the size of North Korea's nuclear arsenal could range from 20 bombs to as many as 60. The senior official said the information came from the intelligence authorities. He also said efforts to rid the North of its nuclear program would continue. And coming up, finding faith in Washington. We're going to show you a Bible study inside the White House. Stay with us. Given all the headlines about the Trump administration, you do not hear much about the strong faith within the cabinet. The Bible study we first told you about is still going strong, according to one of its members, Energy Secretary Rick Perry. CBN's Jenna Browder talked with him about how faith makes a positive difference.
If you'll bow your heads, I'll do the prayer.
Faith on display at the highest level.
Oh God, our Father.
This recent cabinet meeting with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo leading in prayer. And it's not just here, but for the cameras.
There are a number of men and women on the cabinet who have a Bible study every Wednesday morning.
Energy Secretary Rick Perry is a regular.
Number one, it gives us an opportunity to see each other and outside of our normal work environment. But it's also sending a message that this administration bases its life experiences on that biblical values.
The Bible study is led by Ralph Drollinger of Capitol Ministries. Along with Perry, Secretaries Mike Pompeo, Betsy DeVos, and Ben Carson all attend. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and Attorney General Jeff Sessions also take part. And Vice President Pence goes when he can. And each week, President Trump gets a copy of Drollinger's teaching.
I really admire the president.
Perry gives Trump a lot of credit for his leadership.
Well, it starts at the top from the standpoint of this is a president that's not afraid to stand up and say, hey, I'm not perfect, but I know the guy that is perfect, and I'm trying to follow those instructions, and that's a really good place to start from my perspective.
When it comes to the naysayers, Perry poses this question.
I always ask people who are, sometimes critical when I was the governor of Texas about, actions that we might have taken, and I said, I try to be instructed biblically, and which one of the 10 Commandments do you not like?
It's one that's hard to answer.
Help us to maintain the honor.
And when you see the fruits of their labor.
All of which we ask in the name of our great friend and master of men. Amen.
Equally hard to criticize. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Still ahead, prophecy on the big screen. We continue our conversation with the team behind the new film, The Trump Prophecy. From a best-selling book to a film, The Trump Prophecy hits theaters tonight, and it tells the story of a firefighter who says God told him Donald Trump will become president. His story is being made into the film that you'll be able to see on the screen this evening. Today, in an exclusive interview, we continue our conversation with the team behind the movie.
When you talk about, putting it out and dramatizing it, like how does it play?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that this movie has is because Mark was dealing with dreams, he was dealing in a place where, PTSD, the hormones of a 70-year-old. He was dealing with thyroid issues. I mean, he had so many things going on medically, too, that he was real messed up, in the sense that as he would dream and had the dreams, there was the struggle of where are they coming from? What do they mean? So the drama you also get is the whole dreaming too, which allows you to take some liberties with what that looks like. So there are some special effects, and there are, there's some play with, what are those images and things that we see. But as we deal with that. A lot of people have dreams, and I think that's one entry point that audiences will have, is because many of us have had dreams that have meant something, or we've questioned what they've meant, or we've written them down in a diary, or put away for a while, or you go ask your psychologist or whatever, your therapist, like, what does that mean? And I think that that's a way in. So when you talk about how does prayer become a drama. Like how does that happen? I think you see that through the dreams. You see that through that struggle, and so it's not so crisp, nice, neat. It's not a neat thing. It's not like Mark's life was, it wasn't, and it's not. He's not because he's a firefighter. So he's a layman. So that's what also makes it another entry point, because it's not seen. In fact, I think, there's not a lot of Christian movies out there that don't have a pastor in the movie. This doesn't have a pastor in the movie. There are other characters that take on those advice giving or wisdom offering positions, but Mark is a common guy working a hard job. And so I think that's another way in that I think might be helpful.
I love hearing you say that. The thing that stands out for me in hearing that is you talk about him being a mess, and I just feel like so many of us at times our life is just messy.
Sure.
That's the nature of being a human being.
I was worrying the other day. Excuse me, Rick. I was talking to Rick about some stuff and that I've been dealing with, like just medically, nothing big, but just it's amazing how when you don't know about the future, right?
Yeah.
You worry. Yeah. And so it led me directly to, I think I was in Luke, I can't remember, but or Mark, and the words of the Lord talking about worry and just talking about the grass and the flowers. And again, we hear it, we do. And what struck me in the scripture was that he said, you can't add a single hour to your life. He says, if you can't even do this small thing. And I thought to myself, well, that doesn't sound small. Adding a single hour to your life, for God, though, it's nothing. So, to me, what jumped out was stop, give up, in the sense of submit to the fact that you're not going to know the future. So I think when you look at Mark's journey, he was eager to find out, full of worry, full of concern. He had to retire at 39, which I'm at. So that was one common point of entry. That would be like me retiring, but here's a guy that served, went to the bad parts of town as a firefighter, continued to serve his community, even when he could have moved up, even when he could have, stopped going to all those hot places. This was that, and I think that, when you look at the fact that he didn't know, and it was so medical, and for anybody who's struggling with medical stuff, and like I was saying, I guess I come back to the point, it's like, even me, who's a young guy, hopefully you're healthy, but you still start going, oh my goodness, what does this mean? Oh, this could mean that, this could mean that. And then you start playing the what if game, right? And so many people have been there.
Absolutely.
And I think, the thing that Christianity and Christ offers us is there's a break from that chaos. That's the beautiful thing about Jesus, is that he offers you hope and grace, and also just a trusting that we can't bring ourselves to. And we still, as believers, don't do well in living there. But I just was reminded, now that you said that, I'm just reminded of the other day sitting in my car reading the scripture and saying, I'm going to choose not to worry in this moment. Give me a few minutes and I'm sure I'll be back to still having those thoughts. But I think that mess is ultimately, you're right, it's what attracts people, because Christianity is not about perfection. The cross was full of mess, and that's ultimately what it's about.
That's what grace and mercy are for.
So one of the messages of the film, taking up that same theme of mess, when he finally finds his healing, is when he is on his knees in prayer, and he says, God, I can't do this. I can't fight this anymore. I don't have the strength, I don't have the wisdom, I don't have the ability. And that last face-to-face with the demon, which is pretty graphic in the movie, he begins to write in the air. And what he writes is, no weapon formed against me can prosper. And as soon as he gives that up, he finds his healing. And that's so true in our lives. We try to do it and struggle on our own, and it's not our battle.
Absolutely. Last question for both of you. First, people can get a chance to see this movie when, and who is this movie for?
This movie, I think, is for everyone. If you love Trump, you're going to love the movie. If you don't love Trump, we hope that you will come and see. And I think you'll see a different side of it. It's not a agenda-driven movie. It's a movie much more than that. It's about God intervening and working in our world, and specifically in our country and in our lives. And October 2nd and the 4th, it's a Fathom event, which means it'll be in theaters. Wherever you live, there's a theater near you. I can promise you that we'll have this movie.
Yes.
And it's on the 2nd and the 4th, one night only, and you go, and it's an event-oriented movie. And we felt like, as we did this, it really is an event, a rallying point to be able to come together for this film. There are a lot of ways you can do it. You can go to our website. You can go to thetrumprophecymovie.com, and they'll direct you to tickets. You can go to fathomevents.com. They'll direct you to tickets. One of the newest and I think the most fun way is to get your cell phone and dial ** movie. It's a brand new technology, and if you dial ** movie, you'll immediately be prompted to a site that will tell you where your closest theater is, and it'll send you on to be able to choose your seats and buy your tickets right there on the phone. It's awesome. It's great. You can even watch the trailer.
So you can catch it tonight or you can catch it on Thursday. We'll be right back. The hit television show Last Man Standing is back on the air for season 7 after being canceled on ABC, and it outperformed its ratings from the last season. There it averaged 8 million viewers Friday night versus 6 million the prior season. The first episode opened with the characters poking fun at what happened to the show.
I'm trying to DVR my favorite show, but it's not on.
Well, maybe it got canceled.
Why would they cancel a popular show that everybody loves? Maybe they're a bunch of idiots.
Fox basically won the night in the ratings game with other networks for the night. Tim Allen and Nancy Travis, who plays husband and wife on the show, give all of the credit to their fans.
I would say the fan base, and without any jokes, was startling.
They were
it was overwhelming.
Very vocal and very active in trying to get the show brought back. We feel like this is the fans' victory, so we thank you.
The show airs on Friday nights on Fox, and it looks like it is sticking to the storyline that made it so popular. Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable. This is a message I hope will inspire you and also move you to post tag tweet and share it with others. Know this, you have the favor of God on your life, and if you're lacking anything, ask yourself if you've taken the time to ask Him. Perhaps you have not because you ask not. That's pulled straight from Scripture. So what is it that you need? Have you bent your knees to ask the Father to provide it? He will indeed answer your prayer. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. And we would love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, on Twitter, as well as Instagram. Well, this concludes this newscast. The news continues 24/7 at cbnnewschannel.com. Hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make this a terrific Tuesday, everybody. See you tomorrow.